Another year, another Star Wars show. Yes, you can hear the excitement in my voice.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
Ahsoka is the newest Star Wars series from Lucasfilm, and like all things Lucasfilm, it's incredibly divisive. Another $100 million show, the same complaints. Is Star Wars worth it anymore? Let's talk about that, but before we do, hit that thumbs up button to let YouTube know you enjoyed this content, hit the subscribe button to let us know you enjoy the content, and head on over to stealingsolo.com to let yourself enjoy some great art. Stealing Solo asks the greatest what-if question of all time. What if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement? That, and a whole lot more, is answered in Stealing Solo, a Captain's Parody. Stealing Solo has been called Laugh Out Loud Funny and the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs, and it's available now for a limited time only. Go to stealingsolo.com, which is powered by Shopify, so you get the reward-winning safety and security, and get yourselves a copy today. Once we sell through this limited backstock, I'm going back to the drawing board to bring you the sequel, which parodies Luke Skywalker's fall from grace, and finally the closing chapter, which I can't wait to get to, Frankenfisher, the Bride of Solo. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. So folks, the only way to get that is go to stealingsolo.com right now, get yourselves a copy, and enjoy the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs. Ahsoka dropped last night, and we did a live watch for the first 2 episodes, which you can check out after this video. While we found the show to be visually appealing and overall just okay, there are 3 glaring issues that we can't overlook. In today's video, we're going to talk about those. The first issue this series faces is the fact that if you're not well versed in Rebels or the Clone Wars, you probably won't enjoy this series. There are ships, droids, wall murals, and more that are all sure to get the biggest Rebels fans excited, but they offer very little to the general audience. The Guardian calls Ahsoka more bad Star Wars, saying, Star Wars TV shows have reached a point that was passed by Marvel superhero series a while ago. Franchise fans still thirsty to slurp down every new one in full, but casual viewers no longer have room in their schedules to blindly commit. Apathy is a dangerous thing, and if general audiences are apathetic, Ahsoka has a huge hill to climb. So is Ahsoka a crossover thrill like Andor, or The Mandalorian in its earlier seasons, or the last few episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, or is it fans-only drudge like most of Boba Fett, the recent Mandalorian, and all of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series? Ahsoka suffers from the same syndrome that makes bad Star Wars bad. It's so in awe of its franchise lore, it keeps taking our interest for granted. We're a quarter of the way through the series, and we haven't seen the villain, and everything is shrouded in mystery. Disney has built up Star Wars on mystery after mystery, often with little payoff. Is it going to change this time? More than likely not. Fans will often overlook bad storytelling because a series references something they like. Fan service is the name of the game. Shows with longer seasons can enjoy a slower pace, but a show like Ahsoka needs to keep things moving, so traditional storytelling takes precedence over Star Wars lore. But here's the paradox. If the mainstream has already given up on Star Wars, isn't this the right path to take? Aren't the diehard fans the ones that should be catered to, since that's all that's left? Yes and no. One has to take into account that the Star Wars fandom is incredibly broad. Of all the mainstream Star Wars, Rebels is probably at the bottom of the list for the most watched Star Wars content. Appealing to the smallest fraction of the fan base may confuse audiences, instead of inspiring them to seek out what they haven't seen yet. The next issue facing Ahsoka is the most glaring because it's literally in your face. Something about the show just looks off. Ahsoka is a weird show. It's caught between Star Wars animation and live-action audiences, and has to be both a worthy successor to Rebels while appealing to new fans. Ultimately, it struggles in doing that and ends up demanding a lot from the viewers who aren't familiar with the crew of the Ghost. But that's only part of the story. The other major issue with Ahsoka is the way it approaches adapting characters, themes, and concepts first explored in animation. It makes the error of trying to translate the visual language of Rebels in a one-to-one way, ignoring the inherent differences between live-action and animation. The medium is the message after all. Dave Filoni, the showrunner of Ahsoka and creative mind behind Rebels and much of the Clone Wars, seems not to agree. When interviewed earlier at Entertainment Weekly, he said, "For me, I'm telling these stories. I don't limit things like, oh well, I did that in animation, so I would do that distinctively different in live action. That's just the story, that's the way it is, and I will be telling it in one medium." But this approach underplays the way that animation as a medium shapes the kind of story and characters that end up being explored. In Ahsoka, this is most glaringly obvious in 2 places. First, the location and interior designs, and second, its costuming. The appearance of characters in Ahsoka are directly pulled from their looks in Rebels, from Sabine's bright multicolored hair to Hera's luminous orange trousers. The problem is that these outfits look entirely out of place when brought to life without any adjustment. In fact, they end up looking like high-end cosplay rather than designed costumes, an effect that makes the whole show feel like an amusement park. It's particularly an issue with the Star Wars animated shows because the visual language of the Clone Wars and Rebels deliberately creates an emphasis on characters that look like action figures. The limitation of the 3D animation at the time meant that the art style of those shows embraced a toy-like feel, and the crew of the Ghosts looked like you pulled them off the aisle in Toys R Us. That was part of their charm, but translating it without any thought of the real world simply doesn't work. All of this is compounded by the fact that none of the costumes in Ahsoka seem to have been distressed or made dirty. This approach isn't limited to just Star Wars. In fact, it's an issue you can see across a whole streaming landscape as more and more productions attempt to cash in on the popularity of animated properties in anime. Netflix's Cowboy Bebop adaptation from 2021 was roundly criticized for its strange visual style as an attempt to bring an anime color palette to life while ignoring the text and tone of the original work's world. Looking forward, fans are raising similar concerns about One Piece and Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptations. But why is this happening? It's a land grab as streamers look for quick wins adapting proven properties over original ideas. It's a similar approach to movie studios acquiring the rights to comics and graphic novels, whose media gets reduced to storyboards and their own differences and values get flattened and reduced. Comics and animation are not training wheels or stripped-back versions of live-action productions. They are a medium unto themselves. You'd have thought Disney would have learned this the hard way by judging how audiences responded to their own various live-action remakes over the years. But it seems not. As an artist, I understand having to blend things into a piece. The characters in the show stick out like a sore thumb. They do in fact look like high-end cosplayers, and it makes the show feel a little more like a Bat in the Sun production than it does an official Lucasfilm production. With budgets as high as they are, I'd expect a little more refinement. Fans of Rebels won't care, they'll be happy that the characters look just like the show, and that's something that's going to affect Ahsoka. It gives a bad name to adaptations. Fans want the characters on screen, but there should be more thought put into it. Imagine if they didn't alter Captain America's costume for the film, and he had wings on his head and his ears stuck out of the suit, like they did in the 90s film, and it looked terrible. You have to make the look of the property you're adapting fit into the real world, or in this case, the Star Wars world. It's something Marvel has done fairly well over the last few years, but Star Wars is more hit and miss. Our third and final flaw of Ahsoka is the lack of danger. The series neuters all the dangerous elements rather quickly, and our heroes are left feeling overpowered. In the first episode, there were assassin droids that looked rather cool and sounded even cooler. They put up a fight against Ahsoka, and it took her lightsaber to cut them down. Though they lost, their self-destruct mode wiped out a huge swath of the planet. For a moment, I thought Star Wars had accidentally created a cool new villain. That would all be changed by the end of the episode, once Sabine beat down one of them with her bare fist and escaped another one after it got shot in the foot and fell down in pain. Yes, that happened, and it took me out of the moment. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, but having a character fight a robot and punch metal without showing any pain is dumb. These characters feel like cartoon characters because they're handled like cartoon characters. They aren't in any real danger. The danger just changes depending on the scene. If a droid can get punched out, what's the point of having one? It's not like Sabine is augmented or anything. She's just a cat lady with purple hair and fists of steel. This all falls on Dave Filoni. Filoni has often been labeled as the man to save Star Wars, but in reality, he's not equipped for the job. Ahsoka feels like he's just trying to do live-action Rebels, and the mediums aren't the same. There's a disconnect that makes it difficult to care about these characters. How can you be concerned about their safety if nothing really hurts them? The fact that Sabine was run through with a lightsaber and then recovered the next day makes the scene feel irrelevant. Was it to add humility? Was it so the villains are more threatening? They already were threatening. The villains were the best part of this show so far. Sabine's stabbing takes away the danger of these duels. People don't die in this story, they just get really big boo-boos. Was Bugs Bunny in any real danger? No, and neither are any of these Star Wars characters. When the stakes are lowered, audiences don't feel anything. Much like watching a cartoon, the characters are oblivious to any danger, and you're just left waiting for the next thing to happen. You're not along on the journey with them. So those were three of the biggest flaws of Ahsoka, each of them valid, but the first one may define its legacy. The biggest problem facing Ahsoka is, it's great if you're a Rebels and Clone Wars fan, but if you haven't watched those, you may not like it. Was that a good strategy? If you're a fan of those shows, then yes. But if that's not part of the Star Wars you've consumed, you may not enjoy the next 6 weeks. Lucasfilm should have had the foresight to work around this, but they may not have had a choice. They put themselves in this situation by producing bad content over the last few years, and this is the audience they're stuck with. It's way too early to write off Ahsoka in the first week. Inevitably, there will be plenty of outrage towards the show because it's Star Wars. These three flaws really make it difficult for me to get excited for more Ahsoka. Friends, join us next time for more. We'll be covering a bunch of interesting topics during the season beyond Star Wars, so subscribe to World Class Bullshitters and get that delivered directly to you all the time. Folks, if you want something else delivered directly to you and you like Star Wars, well, how about the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs and the greatest what-if story of all time? What if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement? That and a whole lot more is answered in Stealing Solo, a Captain's Parody. It's available right now at stealingsolo.com. Go over to the website, get yourself a copy, because books are shipped out all the time. If you bought a copy, it's on its way to you, and you probably have it. So if you're one of that ever-growing list of people who have backed the book, head on over to our Facebook page, our Twitter page, or anywhere else we're on social media, and tag World Class Bullshitters with your copy of Stealing Solo to let everyone know you enjoyed quality entertainment, and to let us know that you got it safe and sound. We love to see that stuff. So folks, stealingsolo.com is the only place to get the book. It's going quick, so you want to act fast. At this rate, it won't last till the end of Ahsoka, and we're already a quarter of the way through the show. So folks, thank you for watching. I'll be back next time with more, but in the meantime, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other. Thanks for watching today's video. Yes, it's over, but don't cry because there's more, a lot more from World Class Bullshitters, and there's only one way to get it. Hit that subscribe button below. When you do that, you'll get notifications and updates from World Class Bullshitters every time we go live. Basically, you won't miss anything. And if there's one thing I hate, it's FOMO. But the thing most people hate more than FOMO is fear of missing out on World Class Bullshitters, because there's just some things you can't undo. So folks, do yourselves a favor and never miss anything from World Class Bullshitters. One last thing before you go, hit the thumbs up button. Not for our egos, no, they're big enough as this, but it does help us fight the algorithm here, and well, it's man versus machine, and that's the real fight. But if that's not your battle, that's okay. There's one last way you can help WCBS, and that's going over to shopwcbs.com, picking up a t-shirt, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, a poster, all sorts of ways to back WCBS. The difference between us and other YouTube channels is I'm the artist that makes all this stuff, so if you enjoy art beyond t-shirts, you can even read our comic books. We got it all. We're called the epitome of pop culture for a reason, and no, again, it's not for our egos. So folks, make sure you're involved with every aspect of World Class Bullshitters, not just for us, but do it for yourself. We're making the change in entertainment everybody out there wants to see. And a special thank you goes out to all of our wonderful patrons who make this content possible. Go to patreon.com/worldclassbs to get involved and help out the channel.